right, Pat, tell us a bit about this big old monster.
So this is a 500-pound Bradley guided half hammer. This is really the big brother of the one that we looked at a moment ago. And like the other one, it's also underrated. The ram in this machine weighs 600 pounds. I don't have it operating at quite the same RPMs. I don't remember what the cycle is in terms of blows per minute on this machine. But this one is actually set up with the factory original electric motor. This machine was made probably about 1955. It's kind of interesting. There's a book called Pounding Out the Profits, and the gentleman who is the author of that has a bunch of production records for Bradley. I reached out to him, and he was able to take the serial numbers that I have on both of my machines and compare them against his production records, which is how we were able to date the 300 to being made in 1944, because he has that serial number in his records. He does not have the serial number of this machine in his records. His records stop in 1953. When I bought this hammer, there was some paperwork that was supplied with it, owner's manual and things like that. And that particular owner's manual notes on the cover that it's a Bradley hammer, but that Bradley hammers were at that time, a division of another company. And we know from records when that business transaction took place in the early 1950s. And so we're pretty confident that this is about a 1955 machine. I purchased it from another blacksmith, a gentleman who was making horseshoes with it. It's, I think, a bit overkill for that, but I think he got it from another blacksmith. The story I was told was that the original owners were at a production forging company, closed die forging company in Muncie, Indiana. I don't have any way to verify that, but when I picked it up, it was in a small town a few miles north of Muncie. So that seems like it's at least plausible. The hammer, when I purchased it, was in excellent condition. The only thing I had to do to it was put a new belt on it and grease it up and install it. It's been a phenomenal machine. There's an enormous amount of power there. You can work some pretty big pieces of steel, which we'll probably do later today. This machine overall weighs about 18,000 pounds, and it's sitting on a concrete block that's about 11.5 cubic yards of concrete. There's some wood timbers between the hammer and the concrete to cushion it.
Can you tell me about your foot treadle here?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Why on these machines are they so high?
Yes. So they are really high. So part of that is because I chose to set the hammers with the dies at a height that was comfortable for me to use. When I first set up the smaller Bradley, I had it sitting on 4x4s. And I found that with that, I ended up bending over like this a lot. It was just hard on my back. So I eventually raised it and put it on higher timbers to make it more comfortable to use. But when I did that, then the height of the original treadle was so high up off the floor that it was really, really inconvenient to use. The other thing is that if you were trying to use a treadle that's this high, your knee is bent, and I'll illustrate it up here. Your knee is bent up to 90 degrees or even more. That can be hard on your joints, especially when a hammer's running. If there's any kind of feedback through the machine that causes the treadle to want to lift. So on my smaller hammer, when I got it, the main shaft at the back was bent just a little bit. So every time the drive mechanism went around, the drive wheel would be just a little bit out of true, and that created a feedback through the treadle that meant that the treadle wanted to oscillate up and down while I was standing on it. And so the more my knee was bent, the more of that cycling that I got in that joint, and it caused some discomfort in my knee. So by putting the treadle lower, I didn't have as much of a bend. And the other thing is that with a treadle lower, I can operate the hammer, and I can actually put my toes on one of the on the anvil bolts or even down on the wood pad. So I'm still more stable. Maybe if I come around here, and this is the way that I typically stand at this machine, and I can put my foot here, so my toes are on the anvil bolt, and I can run the hammer with my heel, or if I choose to, I can come in here. Actually, I don't even do that. I usually just run it like this. So I can do this, and then I've got a good stable footing. If I was to be completely up like this and just standing on one foot, you're not very stable that way. And so that's why I set it up like that.
What is the raw forging capacity of this? What's the absolute max capacity under a 500-pound hammer of this type?
So on this machine, you can easily work a piece of 4-inch square steel. The paperwork, the published data from the company says that you could handle something up to about, say, 6 inches round. And you certainly could do that. The challenge with any mechanical hammer, no matter who makes it, is that you have to have enough travel of your system, both in the ram and then in the linkages, however those are configured, so that the machine can complete a full cycle. And if the workpiece is too tall for that, then you won't be able to do that, and you'll actually lock up on the machine. So I've had situations where I've had 6-inch tall material between these dies, and that was a little bit too much. But what I can do, because I have a great big flat surface here on the ram and on the sow block, I can shift a workpiece down here, and I can gain about 5 more inches between these two surfaces. I can actually forge on this and on this. So in certain circumstances, I will start a job there, get it smaller, and then bring it up here. And actually, we're going to show that later today, probably. I have a piece here of 1018 that's 6 inches tall, and I want to convert that into about a 3.5-inch square and then forge a big taper component out of that. So we will probably start this in this configuration, and then as it gets shorter, we'll get it up between the dies, we'll square it up and then draw out what we need for a shape.